turned 48.
Yes, ma'am.
And I heard you're about to 48, A-T-E.
8.
What are you eating this year?
Ooh, everything. You know, I feel like life is a great buffet. It is. You know, there's all these little experiences that you can have, but it's really your choice on what it is that you go for. And so I'm at the buffet and I don't want to get like so full that I'm sick, but I'm not leaving hungry. You know what I'm saying? So I'm taking everything that I want to out of this year, like taking it intentionally. All the little bits, a little bit of sweet, a little bit of savory, a little bit of healthy, a little bit of naughty.
Can't all be healthy. You need a little dessert.
Why would you want to be healthy all the time? Absolutely not.
I was going to save this for the end, but you're reminding me of the epitaph at the beginning of your book.
Yes.
It's so gorgeous, that Diane Ackerman quote.
I know. I love that quote. Like the first time I read it, it took my breath away.
I'd never heard it
until
I opened your book, and I cried when I read it.
Yes.
Even before reading your story.
Yeah.
It says, I don't want to get to the end of my life and find that I have just lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The width. Like when you think about that, it's like, you know, we always praise when people have lived to like 99 and 100, 101. And you're like, oh my God, they lived such a long life. How amazing. But do you know actually if they lived all of those 100 years? You know, it drove me crazy when people said of my husband that like, oh man, he only lived to almost 44. Like how terribly sad that his life was cut so short.
Yeah.
And it didn't drive me crazy because I didn't think it was true. I do think it's true that his life was cut short, that it was unfair that he died so young, relatively.
Yeah.
But it drove me crazy because I knew there were so many things he wanted to do still. You know, that there was life that he wanted to experience still, and that he wouldn't have the opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. And so when I read Diane Ackerman's quote about the width of life, it changed my perspective on life because I thought, well, then how can I live my life in a way that is not just going to be about the years I've lived? Like, I don't want anybody to look at my life at the end of it and say, oh, man, she could have done more.
I don't think anyone's saying that about you.
But I think it's a choice.
Yes.
It is a choice every day to make sure that happens.
Did it change your rubric of yes and no?
His death did not change that. I have been that way.
Yeah.
But it just changed the urgency with which I do it. So meaning that I've always been pretty exacting about what I want in my life. You know, I've been able to say no about things for almost the entirety of my life. But it changed how I look at time, you know, in that now it was like, oh, okay, I don't want to wait until retirement to do whatever thing it was. You know, it's like, I don't want to wait 6 months for my boss to review the work I've done and tell me now I deserve a raise. Not if I think I deserve a raise today. You know, like it just changed my relationship with time. It wasn't necessarily about how I want to live.
Part of that to me is like your audaciousness. And when I was reading your book, that had to come from your parents. Like I loved that your dad would not give you an American name.
Right.
When everybody like was given an English name and a Ghanaian name.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you are Boz.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the foundation of my life, of course, is from my parents and further back in the DNA. You know, I don't really subscribe to the fact that like, oh, you make your life the way it is. No, of course, you're starting with something.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a little bit of the nature and there's some nurture, which then allows you to be the person that you are. And so the nurture part of my life has for sure come from my parents who set a standard, which let me know that, look, I'm important in the world. And that excellence was not at all an option. It was the only way. You know, it's like, look, my dad was the one that when I said, oh, you know what, I really love to draw and, you know, I'm just sort of doodling. He put me in an art contest when I was 5. I won it, by the way. It was like printed in the local paper, and he was so happy about that. You know, it's like this little 5-year-old girl who like won the art contest. Yeah. Or it's like when I said, oh, you know what, I really love science. He was like, okay, great, then you're going to be a doctor. I mean, it was like there was nothing that I could say that he wouldn't then say, oh, okay, then you're going to go to the very top of the thing.
Right. It was 0 to 100.
There was never the middle. Was never a consideration. So it wasn't even just like, oh, you know what, like, good job, good enough. And so that has its positives, and of course it has its negatives, because that just meant that there was never anything that I could do or that I wanted to do which would just be sort of casual. Everything had excellence associated with it.
So you go to college and you are obsessed with hip hop and Tupac in particular.
Yep.
And you put together this course to teach people about Tupac.
That's correct.
Why Tupac? What did he hit in you? Like, what did you take from his music?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I don't know why Tupac. I just think his artistry and his poetic nature of his lyrics spoke to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think when you ask people, like, who's your favorite artist or who's your favorite poet or your favorite author, I don't know that you can, like, logically explain why that is. It's just something about the way they put words together or the way they put the experience together speaks to you. And Tupac did that for me. Like, I felt like he, of course, at the time was a little bit older than me, and so I felt he was so wise. But now I look back and I'm just like, oh my God, he was like in his early 20s. Are you crazy? Like,
He was so wise.
He was so wise. It's so young, you know?
He talked about the female experience a lot too, which is interesting.
But I liked the complexity of him. Like, even at that time, I loved the complexity. Like, thinking that, like, okay, here's this gangster rapper who loves poetry. Here's this man who talks about bitches and hoes, but yet he's saying, keep your head up. Like, what? What is this complex human being who can be so many things? And he was totally unapologetic about it. He didn't say like, oh no, I never said that. No, he's like, yeah, I did say it. I said it. And I said this other thing too, which is totally contradictory to the thing I said before. And he was fine with it.
Do you think that inspired you when you walked into these boardrooms and everyone was dressed in like beige suits and you come in these fly outfits and your makeup and you were like, yeah, I'm going to be the contradiction?
Yeah, I think it's a amalgamation of all the things. You know, it's my parents who were completely unapologetic about their Africanness. Yeah. You know, it was Toni Morrison who would write and her words never spoke to the basic. Yeah. She was like, you're going to rise to the level I'm on, and you're going to have to read this 6 times in order to even understand what the hell I'm talking about. You know, it was Tupac with his, like, brashness. Yeah. It was so many parts of people I admire who then spoke to the part of me that already existed. And that's what I mean about the difference of nature and nurture. I believe that audaciousness already lives in me. It was just encouraged by the external factors that were influences to help me feel like, okay, like, it's actually all right. Yeah.
You said that marketing and branding are all about reputation. And I'm dying to know the origin of Badass Bows. Because that was a brand before marketers were branding themselves.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
You know what's so funny? So before Badass Bows, I used to be known as Stiletto Bozy.
If you ever want to become a rapper, it's a great name.
I know, right? And it was so funny. There's actually this woman who I worked with at Apple who loved that so much. Yeah. Like, she would just call me Stiletto. You know? And the thing is, like, look, nobody gave me nicknames. I gave them to myself. Yeah, I walked into a room and just like, oh, hi, how are you? Hi, I'm Stiletto. You know, just in case you were unaware. It was like both for my heels and also, I will shank you so fast. Like, don't even try to cross me. Don't do it. Like, you'll be dead. Don't do it. You know? Like, I have a nice smile and all that, but don't play with me.
It's a warning.
You know? Yeah. So it was a persona. Like, almost like, okay, look, you want to know who I am? I'll tell you in one word. And then I felt like maybe Stiletto was a little too violent. So we went to Badass. So Badass seemed a little softer. It seemed a little kinder.
I like that a lot. I was thinking about that when I read about you working with Spike Lee, because you had that same, there's this word in, I don't know like the American or English translation, but in Yiddish it's like chutzpah, like the guts.
Chutzpah. I love chutzpah.
Know?
Yes.
The chutzpah.
Yes.
And like you walk into Spike Lee's office, you're supposed to be this temp for a few days.
Yep.
And you're there for a few years, and you end up giving him notes.
Yes,
on his work.
On his work.
The chutzpah.
Look, first of all, let me tell you, I feel like I must have been Yiddish in a former life.
Please.
Because the way that I love Yiddish words, okay? The brilliance of Yiddish words. It's like, it's so good because it's like, there are things that you know, like you hear the word and you can feel it.
Yes.
Like, you don't need to know the translation. You could just
That's
feel
so well
it.
said.
Oh, man, I love it. But yes, the chutzpah of being able to, and naivete, by the way. So chutzpah and naivete are a dangerous combination. Because that's what allows you to do the things that, like, when you look back, you're like, oh my God, I can't even believe I did that. But you do it and it changes your life.
That might be the equation for a badass.
Yes. Chutzpah and naivete. You don't know any better.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you know what? I might as well do this. It seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
And nobody's told me that it's not a good idea. So then you do it. And naivete, I think, has had a bad rap. You know, people think it's equated with like stupidness or foolishness, and it's not that. Naivete just means that you don't know the opposite of the thing that you're doing. You don't contemplate it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so naivete is like, okay, you walk to the edge of a cliff and you jump off.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know that there was no bottom there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that you were stupid. It's just you just didn't know. And so, like, how was I to know that it was not proper to give a well-awarded, culture-shifting, brilliant icon of a filmmaker notes on his screenplay? I didn't know. I know you couldn't do that. So I did. Today, it's a different story. Today, if you sat me in front of Scorsese and said, hey, like, look at his script, I might be like, you know what, I think it's fine. I think it's okay. Whatever he wrote is all right.
But there's a magic to being young like that.
Yes.
You're able to because it's received okay.
It is. But I hope that, like, all of us continue to tap into that. You know, sometimes I have to remind myself of that, too. Like they say, you know, youth is wasted on the young. And I'm like, no. It doesn't have to be wasted. Like, youth can continue with you. I love when people say, like, oh, I'm young at heart. You know, because it makes me feel like, okay, like you're still doing the things that if you were young and naive, you would do.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes you brave. That's what gives you like the crazy ideas that other people are just like, oh, how is she able to do that?
Yeah.
Because I'm young at heart. Like I have the naivete still and chutzpah.
The chutzpah. I had an intern one time and he walked in a suit.
Yeah.
No, everybody wore like, you know, pajamas, whatever.
Right,
he
right.
walks in a suit and he was unbelievable. The first day I was like, you are going to be somebody in the world. I could just feel it. I feel like that's what Spike must have felt about you.
Maybe.
When you look at that experience in hindsight, even though it was like one of your first jobs, what do you think was the main thing that you took with you throughout the rest of your life?
Man, there were so many lessons. My God. You know, so many. Gosh, there were lessons I learned about myself and how to be, and then there were also lessons I learned on how to be a leader from him and from that experience, you know?
Say more.
Well, on the latter, he really was able to take ideas from anywhere, you know, from anyone. You know, it's like the breakthrough moment for me in my career, I would say, is the day when he was gathering ideas to pitch to Pepsi for a new campaign that he was going to shoot. And he asked everyone in the office to come, you know, with ideas on like who the pop star could be. That would be the star of the show, you know, or star of the commercial. And all of these senior creatives were like looking at the Billboard charts and, you know, trying to decipher like who could be, because it was like going to follow Britney Spears. You know, and at that time, it was like the height of the celeb endorser, you know, the beautiful drink shot. Like that was the game changer for people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
And I had watched Beyoncé in MTV's TV movie called Carmen, the hip opera.
The hip opera. Can't forget it.
Girl, but it was like panned by every critic. It was like destroyed by everyone. It was just like, she's trash. She's never gonna make it. You know, she's not worth her salt. Like all of these stories. And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought she was brilliant. And I was sitting at the front desk of his agency. I was answering phones. You know, I was 23 years old. And when he asked me who my contribution would be to the list, I said Beyoncé. And people were laughing, you know, because it's like all the articles had been written that she'd never make it. There'd never been a successful solo artist coming out of a girl group besides Diana Ross, you know? And I said Beyoncé. And I stood 10 toes down. I was like, oh my God, she was brilliant. And here I go, running at the mouth. Yeah. You know, she was brilliant. It was amazing. She can sing so well. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. Blah, blah, blah. And he went and watched it. And then came back and said, Boz has the right idea.
Wow.
That could change my life. Not just because it gave me the confidence to know that, like, look, my ideas are probably good, even against the person who has 20 years experience. But because he understood that he didn't just have to go to the senior leaders to ask their opinions, but he could ask the assistant who was sitting at the front desk.
Mm-hmm. One other thing I took away from that story is that just because people don't like something doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Like, look how she impacted you.
Oh my God.
That sort of changed the trajectory of her career too.
Hell yeah, it did. You know, after that moment, right, and working through that commercial and all that, because then I had a front row seat. It was my idea.
Right.
Pepsi came and stole me from Spike's agency, right, to come work there. And over the course of the next 10 years, Beyoncé and I did 5 deals together. Ended with the Super Bowl in 2013, her performance. Like, so it changed both of our lives. And I don't know that without that experience, I am who I am. And look, it might be a lot to say, but I don't know if it doesn't change who she is without those experiences.
It would have changed. It would have been a different trajectory.
Yeah.
When you were at Pepsi, you said that you were an outsider. Everybody had an MBA. They'd come from a really specific background. Mm-hmm. Do you think being an outsider, so to speak, like gave you an edge there? Or was it more difficult?
No, it's always difficult. It's very hard to be the outsider, you know, because everybody has cliques. People feel comfortable in their inness. You know, being an outsider, I'm not at all going to lie and pretend like, oh, yeah, you know, I was just in there and blah, blah, doing whatever I want. It's like, it's hard. It's terrible. Yeah. There's not a good place to be. Mm-hmm. Now, but it's not impossible to not make an impact or a difference, clearly. But it is not the place you want to be. And I wish it wasn't the place I had to be.
I like your honesty, because I think a lot of people would say, like, oh, I found my way around it. It gave me a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. But girl, if I could have been on the inside, if I could have been well-liked and patted on the back and like, good job, Boz, I would have taken that. Who wouldn't?
So it was around that time that your husband was diagnosed with cancer, right?
Yes, 2013. Yeah.
And that urgency that you talked about, you guys made a list.
Yes.
I love the list. I want to do this in my life.
Yeah, you should.
Because when you write things down, they're more likely to happen.
Yeah.
So tell me about the list you guys made.
Oh, gosh. Well, the list had all kinds of things on it. You know, I mean, most of it was simple. You know, things that you probably would not put on a bucket list.
Right.
You know, people say bucket list and it's like, you know, jump off the bridge in, I know, like Phuket or some crazy destination. And I'm like, no, maybe it's just to eat gelato in Little Italy, made by the guy who's been there for 57 years.
Right, you don't even have to go to Italy.
Like, you don't have to go to Italy, you know what I mean? It could just be the things that you really enjoy, that you want to do, but you have to make it a real, like, option to do it. Mm-hmm. You have to make it intentional. And so the list was more about the intentionality of doing the things that we want to do together, more so than it was about, like, doing big and crazy things. And the intention was to have memory. You know, and the gift from him to me was that it was going to be my memory. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily that he was doing it for himself. You know, I think the honesty of it is that at the end of life, and certainly at the end of his life, he didn't care so much about, this is the last time I'm going to eat lasagna. It wasn't so much that. It was that he wanted to make sure I had the memory of the last time he had lasagna. You know, that was really the gift of it.
You guys were going to get divorced or separated before he was diagnosed. Mm-hmm. That must be so complicated.
Oh, yes.
I've never really, like, I don't know if it's okay, but people don't really ask you about that aspect of it.
No, they don't. I don't know why.
Like, how did you feel? How did that impact the challenge of it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you know, I think for anyone who's been in any kind of relationship and you realize at some point that you no longer want to be in it, it is really tough.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like to compare grief and compare years and things like that. So I don't care if you've been in a relationship for 5 months or you've been married to somebody for 25 years. Yes, of course, the experiences matter and all those things. But like that moment of knowing that you no longer want to be in it and then having to communicate that is so hard. It's like you put yourself in that moment that you remember when you had to tell somebody who loved you that you don't want to do this anymore. Like that was certainly one of the hardest things that I've ever done, especially knowing that he wanted so much of the family unit and he wanted us. Yeah. But I no longer wanted us. Like our marriage had become so fractured because of so much grief in it. You know, it was like the struggle of the realizations of how hard it is to be in an interracial relationship and bicultural relationship where value systems don't necessarily match up all the time. You know, and what had been, you know, so exciting and adventurous when we were in our 20s was a burden in our 30s. You know, we had lost a child together. We had then struggled in a pregnancy together where we were blaming each other for the things that had gone wrong. Yeah. You know, I was carrying around so much guilt over the death of our daughter. It just, our relationship was not what it was. And I knew that I couldn't survive in it. And not just that I couldn't survive in it, but the real truth of it is that I didn't want my daughter to grow up with a mother who was bitter. Like there are too many people who are walking around the planet who are the consequence of somebody's bitterness.
That's real.
And I didn't want my daughter to experience me that way. I mean, there were so many people who knew me as the bubbly, exciting, fun version. And at home, I wasn't that. Yeah. And so I know that people often say, well, you stay together for the kids, but I left for her. And in that leaving, I still couldn't work up enough courage to say I wanted a divorce. All I said was I need time and space. And so he gave me that. He lived literally down the street. He would come over every day. Nice. Yeah, he'd come over every day. We still had dinner together. You know, we didn't even have lawyers because it was like, we were just kind of like figuring out how to co-parent. And then I wanted to experience other relationships. And that was difficult because I was like, oh man, I want to be sneaking around. You know, it feels like I'm cheating, although I'm not.
And he's down the street.
And he's down the street. He could pop over any moment. You know what I mean? So then I did the tricky thing where I was just like, you know, you should meet somebody. Don't you think you should go out? Don't you think you should have a girlfriend? And he was like, what are you even talking about? You know, so that took like another year of me being like, no, you should really, I think we should try to see other people. And then maybe we'll know for sure if we want to be together. Yeah. And then girl, he got a girlfriend. And I was like, who's this bitch? Oh, I was pissed off.
You were mad?
Oh, girl, I was pissed. I was so mad.
But you told him to get one.
I told you this is complicated. Okay? I didn't say it was clean. I'm being honest. Okay? I was mad. And not only that, she was so different from me. Wow. You know, she was like this yoga type. Yeah. The kind who like bathes with Dove and doesn't wear perfume. I was like, what the hell is this? She's never seen a friggin' like eyebrow pencil in her life. It was like the basic. Like, how? You come from me to that? Oh, come on, you got to level up. You're going to do it.
You think he was trying to make you mad?
Girl, I don't know what he was trying to do, but he succeeded. Okay? If that's what his intention was, he succeeded. But after I got kind of used to it.
It's hilarious.
I was like, okay, she's like a sister wife. It's fine.
Right.
You know? And
talk when about the width of life.
Oh, girl.
That
look,
is
I was really out here trying to,
Yeah.
But when he got sick, for some time, it was actually a benefit to have someone like her around because, and by the way, just to be very clear, it wasn't like we weren't intimate. There was no crossing of those lines at all, right? He was fully in a relationship with her. I was over here doing what I'm doing. Yeah. But it was like having a good friend who loved the person I love. Right. And I was so grateful for her, you know, to be able to be with him at doctor's appointments when I had to go do something with Lael or I had to take a business trip. Like, you know, hell, we had a group chat, you know, where we'd send each other photos of like, okay, this is what is happening with Peter today.
Right. It was like Team Peter.
It was Team Peter all the way. But the day that we discovered that his cancer was terminal, there was no more fun and games. Yeah. That's when I was like, you know what, actually? I don't like this. Like, I don't want her around.
Wow.
You're my husband, and I'm the one who's going to take care of you. And I recognized in the moment that it was unfair. I know that still. I know it was unfair to her. I know it's probably unfair to him. But, hon, I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like I was going to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
I was like, no. These are the memories I'm going to be left with. And I'm not going to be able to live if I don't do this, if I don't take this fully on. The vows said, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. That's what I'm going to do. And so I told him that we needed to reevaluate our agreement.
Yeah.
And he was like, fantastic. Get her out of here. I was like, yep, exactly. Get her out of here. And again, like, I realized that even in the laughter that we're having now, I'm sure there was heartbreak for her.
Yeah.
You know, and probably heartbreak for him, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah. But you
But
guys
it's
had
what
a
I
different
needed.
kind of love.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm wondering how you balance living an urgent life with the time it takes to create meaningful things, which you do often.
Yeah. Oh. Well, you know,
What is that for you?
but this is the beauty of urgency, is that I think, you know, it gets confused that urgency means like rushing. But it's not that. Urgency is more intentional than that. It means that I am purposeful of getting the thing I want without stopping. So it means that, like, look, if I want to have an experience,
Yeah.
like, let's say a vacation experience, I'm not gonna let anybody stop me from trying to get over there. And that meaningful experience is when I'm in it and I have achieved it. And I'm like, yes, I'm sitting here in Thailand, you know? Or it's like, you know, I want to get to the next position in my career. And I'm urgently chasing that thing. Now, I'm not saying it has to happen next month. It could take 5 years. But when you get there, or on the process to get there, you're feeling so fulfilled because you know that you're only moving because you want to go.
In a specific direction.
That's correct.
So that's a great point. That's the feeling that you have to have. If you don't have that feeling, you got to change directions.
You have to change directions. Oh my God. Yes. And it's okay to have had the idea that you want to go that way, and then 2 weeks from now, you're like, actually, I don't like this direction. I want to go over here. That should be your prerogative. You know, but we get so caught up in these like pro-con lists and these 5-year plans and the goals that we set that you get confused. And then all of a sudden you don't want to follow the sharp move because you're like, oh no, but my 5-year plan said I need to do this thing. Why are we stuck to that?
How much of your life has been faith and intuition versus strategy?
Girl, I think 100% of it has been faith and
Wow.
intuition. 100%. If there was more than 100%, I would say that. There's been no strategy in this.
What?
Zero. I'm being totally honest. No strategy.
So anybody is going to listen to your resume and think,
Yeah.
huh?
They should.
It's all feeling.
It's all feeling. Because, and the thing is, now here's the real crux of it, is that people will look at my resume and be like, gosh, this was so smart. Move from that to that to that to that.
Right.
But if I told you the stories of the slivers of time in between those moves and told you that people didn't cheer for me while I was making those moves, people didn't think they were smart. And then now, looking in hindsight, they're like, she always knew what she was doing. I knew it. But no, I moved on feeling. I moved on intuition. And I believe that's why I'm successful. Not because I had some grand master plan that has like all of a sudden manifested. I don't even believe that. I'm like, I think that the destiny comes from what you are intuitively understanding as each day unveils itself.
Yeah.
Not that you can see 10 years down the line and say, that's where I want to go and I'm going to manifest to get to the 10 years. What makes you think you have that much power? You don't.
So when you're in those rooms
Yeah.
and you have these ideas because you're so tapped into culture, I've heard you talk about that, and people in the room maybe don't see the world the way you do.
Yeah.
And you're trying to explain to them it's this feeling you have.
Yeah.
How do you get that idea
Yeah.
across the finish line?
Well, that's a different thing. I think the idea of persuasion is very different from your own feelings, intuition about how to live.
True.
You know, so for me, those are two very different things.
Okay.
If I'm in a boardroom and I'm trying to sell an idea, believe me, the first time you heard the idea is not when I'm standing in front of you. The first time you heard the idea was when I had the meeting with you 2 weeks ago.
You're planting seeds.
Hell yeah. And I'm also getting information because maybe my idea is stupid. Like, I'm not afraid to say that, like, I don't always have the best idea. I have the best crafted idea. And so meaning that, like, I craft it over time.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to pitch you a little bit of it, let you sit with it, start thinking, and then I'm going to come back to you and be like, so what did you think about it? And I want you to tell me the truth. Don't try to placate me. You know, it's like pacify me. Tell me what you thought. And then there are some things that I'm like, okay. If you have a struggle with this part of the idea, then I've got to go fix that and come back so that you understand. Because by the time I get in the room, that big crazy idea, I want heads nodding all around the table. And there might be one person who's still over here not believing, but by the time we walk out the room, everybody else has convinced that person that it was smart.
Okay, so as you're telling me this, now I understand what you mean when you said in an article a few months ago when you started Real Housewives, that Housewives is like the boardroom.
Hell yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's those planting of seeds.
It's the planting of seeds. It's the small conversations that lead to the big conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to make sure everybody's on your side, and then you get to the big one. And then you can have a conversation because you don't have to argue.
They are playing checkers and you are playing chess.
It's always been that way.
I'm getting warm.
No, but the thing is that, like, I think you have to know the difference, though, you know, between, like, what is meant for your life and what you are trying to do in your life versus, like, how everybody else has a role in that.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that you are at the center and that you're the reason why this experience exists. Everybody else is just helping you along to get to the destination you're trying to get to.
So speaking of helping you along, I listened to almost all your interviews.
Oh, yeah?
And I've never really heard you talk about mentorship.
Oh, this is a big one.
Tell me. The only person that I've ever heard you kind of talk about with like a lovingness was Jimmy Iovine.
So with the lovingness.
Maybe that's the wrong word.
This is a tough one because I don't like mentors. I don't believe in mentorship. I don't believe in menteeship. When people are like, oh, can you mentor me? I'm like, hell no, I won't do it. You know, not because like I don't have time or that like I don't want to pass on the keys. Girl, please, I'm open. I will tell you everything you need to know to make you win.
Yeah.
But the concept of mentorship has been so, it's been made so gross that it's like these forced coffee dates and these Zoom meetings and this like, let me sit down with my notebook and write down everything that you said, that it's not real.
Yeah.
You know, it's like real mentorship or real passing along of information is more like back in the day, like apprenticeship. You know, it's like, come shadow me.
Come watch me.
Watch. You know, it's like, I liken it to how I learned to cook. You know, my mom in the kitchen is not gonna tell you, put 1 cup of flour, 2 tablespoons of baking powder. No, you're gonna watch her. And if she's moving too fast, girl, you better pray and hope that she's gonna make this again so that you can watch her one more time.
Right,
you know?
and she's cooking on feeling.
Girl, she's cooking on feeling, and you don't have time to take notes.
Yeah.
So you just have to watch and commit it to memory. And I'm like, that's what mentorship should be. You should be able to watch me, watch the way I move, ask me questions if you want, but mostly watch how I move. Take notes from what I'm doing, and then apply it in the way that makes sense for your life. You know, but like these forced coffee dates and things, I hate those things.
Yeah.
Absolutely detest. And it should be more like friendship too.
It has to be two-way.
Yeah. It's like, why do I want to
you.
be in a relationship where you're just taking from me and I get nothing?
Yeah.
Sounds ridiculous. I'm
totally
not in that. I'm not into it at all.
So Jimmy Iovine.
That crazy man. But first of all, I have, you know, the other day I was thinking about this. I was like, man, you know, I feel like I'm always just drawn to founders in my entire career, right? Outside of Pepsi as one example, everybody else I've worked for has been a founder.
Huh.
Isn't that wild? So
Right.
Spike was a founder. So then just take out PepsiCo for a second. I went to Beats, that Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, founders. Apple, even though I didn't work directly for Steve Jobs, he'd already passed away by the time I got there. Everybody else who built the company was still there. Eddie Q was my boss right there. Uber, Travis Kalanick brought me in.
Yeah.
Endeavor, Ari, he's like he's the king of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Netflix, Reed Hastings. I mean, it's like I've always worked for founders. And so I really love the hindsight that somebody else would look at me and say, oh, you started a new company. It's because you worked, you were working for all these founders. You must have had a plan. And I'm like, no, I think I'm just naturally drawn to people who have that kind of chutzpah. And it's been just the trajectory of having the intuition and the feeling.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know I was going to end up here, but somewhere inside of this DNA and inside of the destiny that was already written for me, I was following that intuition, which led me to all these people who I've absolutely learned from, who I'm taking everything from to apply to what I'm doing now.
Is it crazy to ask you to give me like one thing you've taken from all these people?
Oh man, so good. Okay, so from Spike, his complete unapologeticness about being Black. He could care less what you think about that. I'm blackity black, 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 black. I love it. Oh my God. Okay, from Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy had a golden ear. He understood, he would hear music and know that it was a hit or not a hit, and listen to that. And I don't have a golden ear, but I have a golden eye for ideas.
And pulse, I think.
Yes, I can feel things. You're absolutely right. Like pulse on culture. I could be like, oh, that's hot. Go there before anybody else sees it. So listening to that. From Travis Kalanick, it is like the idea that nobody else believes in, because it is not making the wheel. It's simply recoloring it. So he took the ideas of taxis and just put it in tech. And then built $1 billion business on that. You would think that like, oh, well, you can only be brilliant if you're coming up with something brand new. No, he didn't. He was like, great. You see that taxi right there? I'm gonna just change it and make it something different. Him. Ari Emanuel. Oh my gosh. Ari is equal parts. No, actually, I take that back. He's all emotion.
Really?
Oh my God. Ari will cry at the drop of a dime.
Wow.
And he also gets pissed. So people are afraid of him because like his anger is so big. But he's also the one who's going to cry. There was once a hit article written on me after I'd left Endeavor. And he called me and he was just like, you want me to kill that person who wrote that article about you? I was like, Ari, please don't ever hang up. Like I can't even say, I need plausible deniability, okay? Don't say these words to me. But he ride or die.
Yeah, he's fiery.
Like fiery and emotional, and he's completely unafraid. I mean, we would have our morning meetings, and it's the whole agency from all the countries, and Ari would be sniffling in the corner, either in pride or in frustration. And he didn't care if you saw him crying. Beautiful. Reed Hastings, oh my gosh. Reed has that quiet leadership where he will speak quietly but firmly from the back of the room. Like he walks in and you probably don't know that he's the one who founded the company. But when he speaks, you're gonna listen, because he's so sure. And he's completely also unapologetic about his standards. There's like this, they say it's a myth, but it's not a myth, which is that he's always looking for the next better person.
Wow.
And so it's like, you can never be comfortable in your job. It's like, okay, maybe you were good yesterday, but now I saw somebody better, so you're out of here.
What was the best run company?
Oh, that's a really hard one. That's hard to say. Apple is a beautifully run company.
Yeah.
So, but I think some of it was also just legacy of Steve Jobs, and since I didn't work with him directly, I don't know. But it's a beautifully run company, still with the right ethics and values at heart, even though it's enormous. I don't know how they're able to continue keeping that pace, even with how large it is.
How many SKUs have you made for Eve?
Oh my God. How many SKUs?
Blow my mind.
Girl, I think there is 167.
Bose, how?
I know.
I made one card deck. Do you know how long it took me to make that?
Look.
I'm coming out with 2 expansion packs this year.
Good. I'm so happy for you.
100 and...
Yeah.
I'm dying to hear the process of how this all went down.
Girl,
First of all, are we wearing Eve right now?
Oh, of course. Of course.
It's really beautiful.
We don't step outside without repping the brand.
It's really beautiful hair.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, it was accidental. It was accidental. Here's what happened.
I'm going to throw...
I know. Here's what happened, okay? It started off with just being like, okay, I just need hair that resembles textures I like.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, let me get like a straight texture. Let me do a semi-straight texture, do a loose curl, a tighter curl, and then like a really tight curl.
Yeah.
You know? And then I was like, but why is it that these companies don't make lace? And lace is what the hair is put on. Like, why don't they make lace that matches like the range of skin colors?
Yeah.
It's like if you got 80% of the consumer base that are Black women or women of color, why is it that all of it is white? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let me get 3 lace colors. Yeah, do 3 times 5. Now you have 15. So it started right there. And then I was like, you know what? And what about lengths? So I'm like, okay, you got 22, got 26, you got 30, you got 34, I got 40. There's 5 lengths. So 5 times 15, 75.
Now I see you on your Instagram and you said before you started Eve and built the factory in Ghana, you went to Asia where most of the hair was made.
Yes.
I loved seeing that. It was cool that you filmed that.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, it's not really giving what I need it to.
No. It wasn't
Why
giving.
not build the factory there? Why'd you build it in Ghana?
Oh, that's a really difficult question too. It certainly would have been easier to build it in China.
Right.
But I also wanted to build it where I knew people could understand what I was doing. Where there wouldn't be corners cut based on manufacturing practices. Sometimes you just need to take it out of its environment and put it somewhere else so you can see it differently. So it's like if I had just kept it there, then perhaps in China, there would have been, ways of making the product that I would have just gone with because that's just the way people do it.
Right.
But when I took it out of the environment and put it over here, now I'm asking questions. I'm like, well, why does it need to be rinsed in this chemical? Like, why can't it be more natural products that we're rinsing the final product in? Like, why is it that we can't incorporate oils that are from the continent in the hair care product? Why is it that the packaging needs to look like this instead of that?
But you're self-funded.
Yes.
I can only imagine what a startup cost to build a factory and all these SKUs cost.
Outrageous amounts of money.
It would have been really easy. First of all, easy for you to get capital if you wanted to raise.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say easy, but
yes,
you know
I
enough
understand
people.
what you're saying. Yes.
Or it would have been easier to build this factory in China. I think it's really cool that you did it where you're from.
Yeah. And also because I just didn't want anyone to tell me what to do. At the very base of it, it came down to that. I just don't want anybody telling me what to do. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm done with that. And taking other people's money often means that then you got to go answer to them. It was funny, actually, you just made me think of this. So in the period between when I published my book and when I decided to found my company, I was playing around trying to think of what I wanted to do. And I called a very trusted friend who, she's not in the bestie circle, but she's close enough,
Don't tell Carrie.
It's a good girl. Okay, don't tell. I might get threatened, But I called her and she said some stuff to me that made me so upset. I was so pissed, because she was just like, Bose, you can't live the way that you live and expect investors to be okay. It's like, you can't run off to Paris and pop bottles of champagne and investors are going to look at you and take you seriously. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you can't look at my resume and look at my accolades and look at everything I've done and say that, like, I'm not serious, that I'm somehow frivolous because I popped a bottle of Vouv. Like, where did they do that? But she was serious, and I knew she was. But it still made me mad.
Right, she said it from a place of love.
She said it from a place of love and knowledge. And I had to sit with that. And she was just like, because they're going to always wonder if it's their money you're spending. And that changed everything. I was like, I don't want anybody asking me why I'm popping bottles of Vouv. Hell, if I want to pop a bottle and pour it down the drain, I should be able to do that. I don't want anybody asking me any questions. And then I turned around and I said, well, the security I have in the money I've made is sitting in a bank or sitting in investments or sitting in stock. And it makes me feel good because I can look at my assets and say, oh, I'm worth an estimated fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But what good is that doing me? Like, what good is that? So all of this time, all this effort I've put into these other companies, I'm going to take that back and put it into myself. And it wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't like, I'm saying it casually now, but it wasn't like I didn't toss and turn and stay up at night and be like, oh God, is this really?
Yeah.
Right,
you have a daughter.
Yes.
You have responsibilities.
Yes. And I have years left of life that I want to live well.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I poured everything I had into this and it didn't work, then what? But I almost felt like I had no choice.
Yeah, what pushed you over to do it?
I really felt like I had no choice. Because I was like, you know what? I feel this call to make this company so deeply, so strongly. Like, it almost feels like it's in my cellular makeup. Everything in my life has led me to this point. Like, I know that without a shadow of a doubt. There's just zero doubt. Like, the way that God speaks to me is so specific. And when I heard it, I knew it. There's only been a few times in my life where I've heard the voice of God, and I'm telling you, I know it. And so when I heard it, I was like, ooh, yeah. So I
Do you
just
remember where you were? How did it come to you?
Oh, gosh. Well, this time, you mean?
Yeah.
I was actually in the shower. And I was thinking about exactly this, like, what do I do? There were so many things that I want to experience. I was weighing an offer that was going to be coming from a very large company. They were considering either CMO or CEO titles, and so I was standing there contemplating this, and sometimes I play with the idea of like, ooh, what's the press gonna say? Ooh, what's it, and my ego was getting in there, where I was just like,
how could it not?
Yeah, because I was like, oh man, I can't wait till these fools who've been talking about my time is over, they see this, And I was in the shower, and the voice of God is like, it is a strong, clear bell, at least to me.
I've only heard it once.
Oh man, it's so beautiful. Like it's so clear. It just cuts through all the other noise. Everything goes silent. And what I heard was, you'll call the company Eve.
Wow.
That's what I heard. And when I tell you, I want to cry now, like the tears. Because it was like a bell just struck in the middle of my spirit. And I was like, what company is that?
What will I be making?
God, come back. I don't know, what do you mean? Give me more instructions. I'm not sure what that means. Is there more to it? Eve, what?
We need details.
Exactly, like, where's the strat plan?
That is amazing.
Yeah. But I cried and cried and cried because I knew it. Like, I knew. I was like, whatever it's supposed to be, it's going to come to me. And girl, I have that same faith sitting right here right now. That like, whatever it's supposed to be is just coming. I just have to be obedient in it.
Right.
And so the fact that like, shortly after that, I was on a birthday trip with my sister, a really good friend, and my cousin. And we're coming back from that trip. We'd gone to Hawaii. And I had told a few people, like, you know, that I had this idea. And, or that I wanted to do hair, you know, and I'd even told anybody the name was Eve. I just said, you know, I think I'm going to go into this business. People thought I was crazy. You know, they're just like, I don't understand. Why are you going to go sell hair for? You know? And we're sitting in the airport, it's just me and my cousin, and she was asking me more about it. And I was explaining to her, and she was just nodding, and like she understood what I was saying, even though I knew it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then she said, all right, I'm going to join you.
Huh.
And by the way, this is a woman who's highly accomplished, like operations mastermind. She worked for Coach at the time. And she said, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, girl, I got, what? I didn't even tell you what the job, there's no job. And she was like, that's okay. We're just gonna build it. And it was like, I mean, again, another, you know, like just, but I knew that was also God.
Yeah.
That like all of these things were going to be put in place
To make you
simply
ready.
because I'm being obedient. And I know that's what's happening.
When you say obedient, do you mean like excellent so that it comes to you when you're ready? What does that mean?
That means that I am listening to my intuition, to the feeling. That means I'm not swayed by the outside voices and the people who are like, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And you know, the best way to make money is this and the da-da-da. You know, and cut 6 cents off if you do it this way. It means that a lot of times I am quiet and I am deciding and then I am going for it.
Yeah.
And so therefore, and that's a very difficult thing to do because of course people love you. They want to give you advice. They want to tell you how best to do it. I can't tell you how many people are just like, oh, talk to my friend who did X, Y, Z thing and she knows it. And then I meet that person. I'm just like, something's off. No, thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very difficult thing to do, to be obedient to your intuition.
It is. There's a lot of things that pull you in other directions.
Yeah, yeah.
When I hear you talk about your life and I read about the excellence and the ambition, I love the ambition. It like fires me up.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about the cost of it all too.
Yeah.
That to me is a second book for you.
Oh, yes.
There's so much there I can imagine that's
Yeah.
like kind of left on the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think the cost has been?
It's funny, actually. My the woman that runs the PR company that I work with, Anita, wants me to write an article called "The Cost of Being Different."
Yeah.
And it is essentially basically what you're asking, you know, which is that. It's like the cost of ambition, the cost of being different, the cost of, you know, having and living and being what other people don't want you to be, you know? And it does cost a lot. It costs, I mean, I think the basic things are like it costs you friends, it costs you money, you know, those are, because you'll turn down something that people will be like, oh my God, well, why would you do that? So you could do this other thing that's small, you know? But also it costs you friendships because you can't be light in the friendships that you have. You know, I have like besties and I have acquaintances. There's no one really in the middle, you know, because like you can't have people around you who aren't contributing to your life in some sort of meaningful way. And so the ambition requires like that kind of precision. You know, it requires people who will understand that you're going to be focused on what you want to do and nothing else. Not meaning that I'm not giving to other people or that I'm not considerate of other people. Of course I am. But it's like I'm living the life I want to live and I'm going to do everything that is required of me to do it. And I'm singularly focused on that. And so that sometimes means that I can't do the thing you want me to do. And you have to be able to understand that and be okay with that.
What do you think you did that 99% of people didn't do? What did you do differently?
Well, there are a lot of answers to that, but I I mean, there's so many answers to that. There've just been so many choices I've made, you know, that I feel like other people wouldn't have. Where do I even start with that?
The guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, look, like I said, I have been very focused on making sure that I'm living my life for me. So even in that, even in my motherhood, I've made choices that I just don't think a lot of other people make, which is my daughter's very clear that my life is mine. You know, she's not confused about that at all. Now, it's not that I don't consider her in my life. Of course I do. I'm her mother. But just back to what I said before about like not living in bitterness. Like if I curtail the things I want to do, or I do things I'm just like, oh, I can't because I have to make sure that things are, then I'm going to be resentful of her. And I don't want that for me or for her. And so I've made choices that sometimes are in my favor, and she's aware of that. But I want her to also live her life that way. Like, I hope that's what I'm teaching her.
Right.
Which is just like, look, you should be in the center of your life.
I love that. I have too many questions for you. You said my only responsibility in shattering the glass ceiling is being able to survive it. I feel your joy, and I feel your excitement for the next chapter.
Yeah.
But I'm also not in your house day to day. I don't see the quiet moments. Do you feel like all the bumps and bruises and scars were worth it?
Ooh. It's probably better answered if I say, would I do it again?
Okay. Would you do it again?
No.
You wouldn't? Conan O'Brien, I was on an airplane with him, and I asked him that one question.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it would be too hard.
Yeah, it would be too hard. I wouldn't do it again. It's too hard. It's too hard. It's just too hard. It's too hard.
Oh, Bose.
Yeah.
You really do have a second book in you. Oh my God.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Because it's just like, you know.
What would you do?
I don't know. I'd move to the village and like farm a small patch of land and just try to eke out a living every day.
Are you kind of hoping your daughter gets like a different shot at it?
No, I don't have any aspirations for her, honestly, except that she lives a happy life. You know?
Cool.
I just hope that she does exactly what she wants to do. Like, that's it.
That's really cool. I've never heard anyone say that.
Yeah, no, I don't. And the thing is that if she said she wanted to follow in my footsteps, I wouldn't dissuade her. I wouldn't say like, no, don't do it. It's too terrible. It's like, no, it's her life. Let her do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe she'll get to 48 and been like, fuck, I should have done it differently.
Should have gone to the village.
I should have gone to the village like my mom said I should. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wouldn't do it again.
You did that. Okay.
You're like under pressure.
I really am. Okay, let's go with some rapid fire.
Okay.
What's something you've done for love or for friendship that felt absolutely wild at the time?
Ooh. What have I done? Oh, I don't know. That's so hard.
Come on, you're a grand gesture kind of gal.
I know. Oh, you mean like presents and things?
That's what it is. Have you ever like flown across the world to see somebody for a day?
Oh, well, yes, of course I have. Of course. Girl, I didn't think that was a grand gesture. That's just me following my heart.
See, that's a lucky man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very.
Okay. What's the last thing you did that made you feel really alive?
Ooh. Oh, I sat at the edge of the Victoria Falls, like free form, and looked at the falls going down.
I saw you do that on your Instagram.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was absolutely insane. Funny thing is, I look at it now, I'm just like, you are an idiot. Like,
Nuts.
I get, like, my knees hurt when I look at it now. But in the moment, I was like, yes, life!
You have so much to lose. Okay, a little piece of wisdom about money or love that you picked up along the way that you wish everybody knew.
Ooh, spend it all.
Really?
Spend it all. Spend everything that you have. Yep, all of it.
That is not what I thought you were going to say.
Yes, spend it. Don't leave it. Don't hold it. No, let it go. Don't invest it either. Just go.
What is one thing every woman should try once?
Ooh. Living without other people's expectations. Yes.
I'm going to take that from today's
Just once.
conversation.
Just once. Do it on something. Like, you know when you're going to a party and you're going to call your friend and be like, what you wearing? Don't
Yeah.
do it. Don't do that. Just wear whatever you want to wear.
I actually have a rule with my friends. They're not allowed to call me and ask what I'm wearing. I find it so annoying.
Oh my God, same!
Do you?
I hate that so much.
Who cares what I'm wearing?
Who cares? Wear whatever you want. You
Yeah.
know, it's so funny. So my new castmate, Jennifer Tilly, right?
Yeah.
She said that in a way that just brought me so much joy. She was like, you don't want to call me because I'm gonna be the most overdressed person. And she was like, and I wear nice clothes because I have them.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, that's a flex. And I love everything about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, this week's episode, Erica in her confessional was like, that bitch has good shit.
No, she really does. Jennifer Tilly is just top of the top. Oh my God, who knew? I didn't know that.
I didn't know who she was until Real Housewives.
Not until, yeah. I mean, like, I was like, she just had a funny voice. That's all I knew.
Yep.
But Homegirl is a fashionista.
Okay. We kind of match your book, actually.
We do. Oh my
Maybe this was meant to
God.
be.
Look
But
at us.
this book
Yes.
changed a lot of people's lives.
Oh,
and
thank
I'm curious about a book that you've read that really shaped you.
Oh, hands down, without a doubt, Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. My favorite book.
It's a really beautiful.
It's a beautiful book. Beautiful book.
Okay, last question. Pick a card, any card from that card game.
Yes. Oh, this is so good. By the way, the gold. Beautiful.
I
Okay,
appreciate
I'm a
you.
middle of the deck type of girl.
Yeah, I like that.
Here we go.
It's intuition, whichever one calls.
Okay. What is the most challenging part of what you do for a living?
It's interesting that you got that one.
Man. The most challenging part is doing exactly what I want to do without influence from other people. Wow, that's
Takes
crazy.
a lot of courage. It is.
Whew, okay. Well, there we have it. It's like tarot. The card came to me.